Chaim. Sorry.
Oh, amazing.
Chaim Bracha. Ki yamuch achicha umata yada imach verzakta boy ger v'soisha v'chai imach al tikach mitei neshech v'sarbis v'yareisa me'alekecha v'chei achicha imach. That means if your brother becomes destitute and his hand falters beside you, you shall support him, whether he's a convert or a resident, so that he can live with you. You shall not take from him interest, and you shall fear Hashem, and let your brother live with you. This is the mitzvah that we have to support the Jew who's poor and needs money. We have to loan him money. And we're not allowed to take interest. We have to give him an interest-free loan. However, it's very strange when you look at the psukim. Twice in these psukim, the Torah tells us your brother should live with you. What's the connection? What does that have to do with giving your brother, giving your fellow Jew a loan? The brother should live with you. So, of course, we know that you're supposed to try to help a person who lives close to you first. But that we learned from, I think we learned from other psukim. I don't think we learned it from here. So why does the Torah tell us twice your brother should live with you? There are halachic discussions about what we learn out of this. We learn that you also, when you care for your brother, you also need to look out for yourself. Your own life takes precedence. But the Torah doesn't just use this term once. He uses this term twice. And he uses this in this context of helping your brother. So what is the Torah teaching us with these words? Rab Menachem Mendel of Kosov was a young man, and he heard that his Rebbe, Rab Feivish of Zabrija, was going to spend Shabbos in the nearby city of Skole. He was very excited. So he decided to make the trip there. Now, of course, he didn't have a lot of money, so he couldn't hire a wagon or a horse to take him there. So he set out on foot, and he began his journey. And Thursday night, he arrived at a little village, and there was a Jewish innkeeper in this village. So he made a stop in the village, and he of course, he came to the inn, and he asked the old innkeeper, I'm traveling to my Rebbe, and I need a place to stay, and perhaps you have some food for me to eat. So the innkeeper, his name was Akiva, he gave a big sigh. He said, I would love to help you. I could give you a place to stay, but I have no food for you. I have no food for you. Right? I don't have food for my family, for my children. I don't have food for myself. I would love to help you, but I can give you a place to stay, but that's it. And he says, but you're running an inn. I'm sure you have something to give your guy. He says, I wish I did, but I don't. I'm out. I have to turn away some of my customers who came. I don't have anything. And that's just the beginning of my troubles. I'm pretty soon. The month is going to be over, and I'm going to have to pay the local landowner the money that I owe him, and I don't know what he's going to do to me when I don't have any money. Okay, so Rabbi Menachem Mendel goes to sleep. He goes to bed hungry, but he can't fall asleep. Right, the whole night he's thinking about this poor innkeeper and his troubles that he's going through. Early in the morning, he gets up and he wishes the innkeeper well. He thanks him for his hospitality, and he heads out on the road. And as he heads out onto the road, a fancy wagon pulls up beside him, and a rich Jewish businessman, Baruch, calls out, "Hey, Rabbi Yid, where are you going?" And Rabbi Menachem Mendel says, "I'm going to Skole. I'm going to the Rebbe. I'm going to Rab Feivish of Zabrina." And he said, "Oh, I'm also going to the Rebbe. Hop onto the wagon." And Rabbi Menachem Mendel looks at him for a minute, and he says, "It's going to be a very expensive ride." And he says, "No, I would never charge you for such a ride. I'm a big Baal Chesed, Rab Baruch. I always help people. You can come on my wagon for free." So he says, "No, you didn't understand. You have to pay me if you want me to ride in your wagon." He says, "Oh, I understand. You're a poor person. You need a little money. I'll give you a few kopecks. Don't worry." And he says, "Nope. The price is 20 zloty." Baruch's face turns red, furious. Chutzpah! I offer you a free ride, right? I even offered to give you a small donation, and you're telling me it's going to cost 20 zloty for me to do you a favor, right? I need to give you money. And Mendel says to him, "You misunderstood. The money's not for me." So who's the money for? So he says it's for two people. There's a poor innkeeper, Akiva, who needs the money, and also for you, Reb Baruch, you need the money. And he's like, "For me? What do I need the money for?" He said, "I need a mitzvah. The mitzvah's nice, but what do I need the money for?" And he says, "Well, you never know. You never know. Life is a very long journey. It has lots of ups and downs. And helping others, no one ever lost out by helping others." Okay? So Baruch takes out 20 zloty. He gives it to him. And he says, "No, I want you to come with me now. Let's ride back to the inn." They go back to the inn. And they come inside, and of course, Akiva's surprised to see them, and Mendel says, "We have for you this. Reb Baruch brought you 20 zloty, so that you can restock. You can buy food and drinks for your inn." And Akiva's so excited, he takes the money, he goes out to the store, and Menachem Mendel turns to Reb Baruch and he says, let's stay here, eat breakfast together. We can get some food. Akiva and his family didn't eat for the last couple of days, so they get some food for them. They have a nice meal for the whole family. And then as they're getting ready to leave, they have to go. It's already Friday morning. They have to go to, I don't know how long the journey was, but they obviously wanted to get to the Rebbe before Shabbos. And as they're getting ready to leave, Menachem Mendel pulls aside the innkeeper. He pulls aside Akiva, and he says, "I want you to remember what Reb Baruch did for you. There's going to come a day when you're going to have to repay it. And I want you to know that you've experienced a lot of difficulties, a lot of troubles until now, but from now on, I give you a blessing. Hashem should light up your life with hatzlacha, with success in your business and in everything you do." Menachem Mendel, he would later be known as Menachem Mendel of Kassa. At this time, he was just known as Menachem Mendel. And he got onto the wagon, and they traveled to the Rebbe. They came to the Rebbe. There were lots of people around the Rebbe, but as soon as the Rebbe saw them, the Rebbe called out, "Make way for the two people who did a great mitzvah." Right? And Menachem Mendel goes to his Rebbe, and he tells him the whole story, what happened. And the Rebbe says, "Yes, I know what happened, but did you remember to tell the innkeeper what he has to do? That he needs to repay the gift?" And he said, Of course, I told him." Anyway, they spend Shabbos there. After Shabbos, Menachem Mendel goes home, Reb Baruch goes home, and 15 years pass by. 15 years later, the wheel of fortune begins to turn, and Baruch's business starts running into one problem after another, and pretty soon he finds himself poor, destitute, and homeless. And he starts wandering around from village to village collecting money. And he hears that in the city of Kosov, there's a big tzaddik who's known to be very generous. And so, of course, him and some of his friends travel to Kosov to get a donation from the Rebbe. And he comes to Rabbi Menachem Mendel. He doesn't recognize him. It's been 15 years since the story. And Rabbi Menachem Mendel looks at him and he says, "I have a letter I want you to deliver to somebody, to a certain inn, to Akiva the innkeeper." And he writes him a letter, and he takes the letter to Akiva. Akiva didn't recognize him at first, but when he heard there's a letter from the Rebbe of Kosov, he says, "I know, you don't even have to give me the letter." He says, "I know what's in the letter. The Rebbe appeared to me in a dream last night, and he told me it's time to repay the gift that I was given." Right? And he sat down, he made a calculation of his assets and how much money he had, and he gave away half of his assets to Reb Baruch. So very often in life, we think that we're doing somebody else a favor. We see somebody who seems like they need help, and we feel that we're giving away our own money, our own time, our own comfort, whatever we have to sacrifice. We feel like we're giving something away. But the truth is, we end up getting much more than we give. Both, of course, in the world to come, we can't even imagine, but even in this world. Rabbi Avram Lempel was a textile merchant in Poland.
Textile? Oh.
A textile merchant in Poland before the war.
Where's that?
And he was big Bal Chesed, very kind, helped a lot of people, and he was very honest in his business dealings. And in those days, the textile business was very difficult to navigate. There were many, many laws with importing materials from different countries, and Rav Avram had to make a lot of effort to stay on the up and up, to follow the law, the tax laws, the import laws. However, he wasn't perfect, and one time some of his friends came to him and they told him about a tremendous business opportunity that presented itself, which wasn't 100% legal. Wasn't 100% legal, and Avram didn't fully understand. Perhaps, he knew it wasn't the right thing, but he was kind of tempted by the easy buck that he could make, and he went along and he got involved in this deal, and he quickly regretted it, and he tried to extricate himself from it, but it was too late. The authorities had discovered what was going on, and Avram's house and his business were soon raided, and he was served with a court date, the date that he had to appear in court for a trial. Didn't know what to do, right? What does he do when he needs help? So he decided to go to his Rebbe. He decided to go to his Rebbe, Rabbi Sachar Doiv of Belz. Now, he was a little embarrassed coming to his Rebbe and telling his Rebbe he got involved in some illegal business activities. So he decided he's not going to mention exactly what happened. He's going to tell his Rebbe that he needs success in his business. He's not going to tell his Rebbe the details of what happens. So he comes to his Rebbe, and he says he wanted a bracha, he needs help, he's having trouble with his business, and he needs help. He needs a bracha, he needs a blessing from the Rebbe. So the Rebbe looked at him, and the Rebbe said, Rav Avram, the way a person who needs help from Hashem, the way to get that help is by helping others. Right? Is by helping others. Now I want you to look out for the next period of time. I want you to be on the lookout for people who need help. Look around you, see people who need help, and do everything you could to help them, and Hashem will make sure to help you as well. And it doesn't make a difference who it was. It says anybody you meet, if you see anybody who's distressed, who needs help, do everything you could to help them, and I bless you that Hashem will help you as well. Okay, so Avram goes out. The first thing he does, he heads to the shul. And of course there are a bunch of tzedakah collectors going around the shul, collecting money. And Avram goes around, he gives everybody a nice donation. He goes around, he places some other shuls in the city, he goes from one shul to the other, makes sure to give every poor person in town some money. Of course, this is what the Rebbe told him to do, to be on the lookout for people who need help. And he does this, of course, he spends all day trying to help people, finding out anybody who needs help. And finally, he decides after he figured he helped everybody in town, he's going to go home. So he goes back. He goes to the train station, and as he's about to get on the train, he sees a woman walking up and down the platform, looking very distressed. Not a Jewish woman, but the Rebbe told him it doesn't make a difference who it is. You see somebody who needs help, you help them. So he approaches her. He says, "Is everything okay? Can I help you?" She says, "No, it's fine." He says, "I see that something's bothering you. Maybe you could tell me what's bothering you. Maybe I can help you." And she says, my purse with all my money and documents disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. May have been lost, may have been stolen. But I'm stuck here. I can't get home. I don't have enough money to buy a ticket to get home. And I don't know what to do. So Avram asks her, how much money do you need to get home? And she says, I need 25 rubles. At least I need 25 rubles for the ticket, and I also need obviously some money for traveling expenses. And so Avram reaches into his pockets and he takes out, I don't know, rubles or coin, whatever type of whatever the currency was there. He takes out 25 coins and he gives out 25 coins and a few extra coins for some money for the trip, some spending money on the way, and he gives it to her. And she's shocked that he gave her so much money. She starts crying, and she says to him, "How can I repay you? Tell me your name so I can repay the favor." And he says, "It's fine. You don't need to repay me. It's a great merit for me to have the opportunity to help you." Okay? She gets on the train. Avram himself goes home. And for the next few weeks after he gets to his town, he does everything he could looking for people who need help. Right? As his Rebbe had told him. The day of the trial finally arrives. And Avram is, of course, very nervous. He's trembling in the court, and the door opens up, and the three judges walk into the courtroom. Two men and one woman. Of course, he recognizes the woman immediately from the train station. And the judges sit down, and the prosecutor begins to lay out his case about the terrible illegal activities that are going on over the a long period of time. And they finally manage to track down the criminals who were the masterminds of these of the crimes. And Avram is probably one of the ringleaders, one of the biggest merchants who's involved in illegal activities in the textile industry. And, the two of the judges are nodding their heads. It sounds good. It sounds good. The Jews are probably, the Jewish merchant probably involved in some illegal activity. And after the prosecutor finishes his case, this woman who Avram had helped out got up and she said, "Let me tell you a story. A few weeks ago, right, I was stuck in where was it? In Bells, far away. And my purse disappeared. I didn't have any money. I wasn't able to get back home. And that's when I met the defendant. That's when I met Rav Avram. He didn't know who I was. We had never met before, but he saw that I needed help and he approached me. He asked how he could help me. And he took out he gave me 25 coins to buy a ticket. He gave me some extra money for the trip. I asked him if I can repay him, and he said he refused to accept payment. And she turns to the court. She says, "You think a person like this, who goes around looking to help people, right, helping people he doesn't know, giving big gifts, large amounts of money to help people who are in distress, you think this is a person who spends his time involved in illegal activities?" I doubt whether he knew what he was getting himself into. He probably misunderstood. He didn't understand what was going on in this business deal. And even if he did understand, it was probably a one-time mistake that he made, right? We can give him another chance, right? I'm sure he learned from his mistake, and we could, and he's not going to do it again. He's such an upright person. I'm sure we could trust that he won't make this mistake again. And the other judges, of course, agreed. And the case was dismissed. Avram was declared innocent. And he realized what the Rebbe was telling him, that when we turn to Hashem and we say, "Hashem, help us," Hashem looks at us and he says, "How do you treat others? When you see somebody else who's in distress, how do you treat them? Do you go out of your way to help them?" And if we go out of our way to help others who are in distress, so Hashem looks at us and he says, "When you're in distress, I'm there to help you as well." The Medrash, Yalkut Me'amloyes on Pirkei Avos, brings down the following story. It's unclear, it doesn't really give details about when it happened. But it says there was once a Jewish doctor, a very wise Jewish doctor, who was known for his skill, his wisdom, and his kindness. And he was trusted by the king of his country. He was the king's personal physician. There are many Jewish doctors. Rambam was one of them, yes. And the king trusted his doctor, and he would, of course, he used his service as a doctor. But besides being a doctor, he also became the king's closest advisor, and the king would consult with him on many matters and running his kingdom.
All the other advisors were Shabbos.
And most of the people in the palace liked this Jewish doctor very much, except for the bishop, the king's bishop, right, who couldn't stand the fact that there was this Jew who was trusted by the king. The king accepted his advice, consulted with him, even more than he consulted with his own bishop, right? And he spent all day thinking about what he could do to get rid of this doctor. Now the king had one daughter. He only had one child, a girl, and this daughter was educated by the bishop. The bishop taught the king's daughter. And he realized that through the king's daughter, he might be able to get rid of the Jewish doctor. So he began to tell the king's daughter terrible things about Jews. And of course, he would talk all day about the Jewish doctor, what a terrible person he was, and how horrible it was that her father, the king, was consulting with him and allowing him to following his advice on how to run his kingdom. And at first, the king's daughter wasn't willing to listen to this nonsense, but the bishop was persistent. He went on for many years, and finally he convinced the king's daughter that she has to do something about the Jewish doctor. And she said, I'm going to go talk to my father about it. We have to get rid of the Jewish doctor. And the bishop says, no, you can't just go tell your father about it. Yeah, we have to come up with a plan. The king's not going to listen to you. So they came up with a plan. The king's daughter, over the next few days, stopped eating and drinking. She lay in her bed. She became very weak and sick from hunger. And the palace staff quickly realized there was something wrong with the princess. They called doctors. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with her. She told them that she wasn't feeling well, and but they couldn't figure out what it was. And they told the king, we don't know what's going on. And the king, of course, came. He said, I try to figure out what's happening. And the king's daughter says to her father, she said, let me tell you what the problem is. Let me tell you what the problem is, she says. She says to her father that in this palace there's this Jewish doctor who comes into the palace all the time to talk to the king, and I can't stand him. Whenever I see him, I become sick. I'm repulsed by him. I can't stand his presence. And I don't know. The only cure I think that we can have is if we get rid of him and send him out of the palace. The king is shocked, right? I mean, his daughter had mentioned things about the doctor before. She didn't like Jews in general. She didn't like the doctor. But that she becomes sick just from seeing him. He tried to reason with her. He tried to talk to her. But she refused. She refused to listen to him. And she said the only way she can be healed from her illness is if the king gets rid of the Jewish doctor. Okay? He has no choice. It's his daughter's health. So he calls the doctor in. And he says, I don't know what's wrong, but for some reason my daughter decided that she doesn't like you. She can't stand you. She says she gets sick around you. So from now on, I have to ask you not to come to the palace. We'll meet outside. We'll meet in the city. We have many places where we can meet. We can talk. But please stop coming to the palace. Okay, the princess is very excited. The doctor's not going to come to the palace anymore. But pretty soon, the princess and the bishop both realized that it didn't help, because the king was now leaving the palace and going out into the city and spending a lot of time with the Jewish doctor outside of the palace. And the bishop realized they have to do something. They have to take it to the next level. They have to take the next step. They can't just send the doctor out of the palace. They have to do something more serious, more severe. So he begins talking to the princess, and they work out a plan. A month later, again, the princess is sick. She's lying in bed. The doctors come, they try to give her medicine, and nothing helps. She gets worse and worse. The situation deteriorates until the doctors come to the king and they say, we don't know what's wrong, but it doesn't look like your daughter has a lot of time left. And the king comes to his daughter, and he's sitting crying at her bed, and he says, I don't know what this is. The doctors have no solution. I sent the doctor away. I thought you would be better. What's going on? And the princess says, I know what the problem is, but I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell me? He says, it's no use telling you, you're not going to listen to me. What do you mean I'm not going to listen to you? So he said, I had a dream. And in the dream, it was revealed to me why I'm sick. And I was also told what the solution is. But I'm not going to tell you because I know you're not going to listen to me. And the king says, what do you mean I'm not going to listen to you? You're my only daughter. I would do anything to help you. And she says, I'll only tell you what my dream was if you promise to do what the dream tells you to do. And the king said, what do you want me to promise something? I don't even know what it is. How can I make such a promise? Okay, I won't tell you. A few more days go by, your situation gets even worse, and finally the king doesn't know what to do. He comes, he says, listen, okay, I promise, I'll do whatever needs to be done. And she tells him that she had a dream that an angel appeared to her and told her that the whole palace is being the king and his palace are being punished for the fact that the king is showing is paying such close attention and showing such closeness to the Jewish doctor. He's going against his own religion. He's listening to the advice of the cursed Jewish nation, and that's why the king is being punished and his daughter is ill. And the only way for his daughter to get better, the angel says, is if the king orders the Jewish doctor to be executed. The king's mouth drops open. He can't believe what he's hearing. He says, are you sure you really had this dream? It wasn't your imagination? And she says, no, I had this dream 3 times already, and I'm sure I saw it very clearly. And the king said, I don't know, I can't execute an innocent person. And she says, I knew it. I knew you wouldn't help me. You promised you would you do whatever needs to be done, and now you don't want to save your own daughter. And she's crying, and at that moment, the bishop walks in. And the king turns to the bishop. He says, I don't know, what should I do? He tells the bishop the story. He says, what do I do? My daughter had a dream that I should execute an innocent man. What do you think? And the bishop says, this is a very serious situation, but I don't think you have a choice. Right? The Jewish doctor is, a nice guy, but he's not your daughter. He's not the continuation of your reign, of your monarchy. Right? He's not the future of your kingdom. You have no choice. And the king, feels that he has no choice, and he says, you're right, I have to do it. Right? He can't bring himself even to face the Jewish doctor. So he decides to do it in a way that he wouldn't have to be there. He says, I'm going to have him executed, but I won't be present at the execution. He immediately sends a messenger to the Jewish doctor that he wants him to come the following morning. He wants him to come at sunrise, right? At exactly as the sun is rising, he wants him to show up behind the palace in the garden, all the way in the back corner of the palace, right behind the big furnace, big ovens in the back of the palace. And at the same time, the king also calls the palace guards, and he says, tomorrow morning at sunrise, someone's going to show up at the back of the garden behind the palace, and as soon as he shows up, I want you to walk over to him, grab him, pick him up, and throw him into the furnace. He's going to yell, he's going to scream, he's going to tell you it's a mistake. The king is supposed to meet him. He's an honored servant, advisor of the king. Don't listen to a word he says. Okay? The bishop is very excited. His plan worked. He goes home the whole night. He's celebrating with his friends. They're finally going to get rid of the Jewish doctor. The Jewish doctor, of course, got the message. He made sure the next morning to get up bright and early. And he starts making his way to the palace. And as he's making his way to the palace, he's approached by a young boy. And the young boy runs over to him and he says, Doctor, I need your help. The doctor says, how can I help you? I have to go to the king's palace now. What is it? And he says, my mother is terribly sick. We live in the nearby town. And the doctor said that she doesn't have much time left. I need you to come right away. My mother's life is in danger. My mother's a widow. She's raising 5 children by herself. And we need you. We need you to save her life. And the doctor says, listen, I hear, I'm right now, I have a very important, I got a special invitation from the king. He told me I need to show up at exactly sunrise at the palace. I have to go there. And as soon as I'm finished with the king, I'm going to come visit you. He says, no, it's urgent. I don't even know what the situation is right now. Right? I don't know how my mother's doing right now. You need to come right away. And he says, I would love to come, but if I disobey the king, who knows what he's going to do with me? What he's going to do to me? My life might be in danger. So he says, what do you mean your life might be in danger? My mother's life is in danger. And it's not just the life of my mother. It's the life of my mother and me and all of my all my siblings. Right? It's 6 lives are in danger. Right? You think that your life is more important than our lives? And the doctor says, you're right. And he says, okay, obviously the king's not going to be happy, but I have to come right away. And he goes with this boy. They travel to the next town. Of course, he's going to make it quick. He wants to try to be back as quickly as possible to see the king. They rush to the boy's mother, and he comes, and Baruch Hashem, he sees that the problem is, he's able to prescribe some medicine. And once they get the medicine and they administer the medicine, he quickly rushes back to the palace. In the meantime, the guard is standing there waiting, it's waiting for sunrise, waiting to do his job. And in addition to the guard, another person who got up very early that morning was the bishop. He was very excited, getting rid. His rival was finally going to be executed, thrown into the furnace, and he wanted to be there to see it, right? So he shows up also outside the palace waiting to see what would happen. The sun begins to rise. The guards are looking around. Nobody's coming to the garden, right? Nobody's showing up. Okay, maybe he's a little late. They wait 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. Something's wrong. The king gave us an order, right? Somebody's supposed to show up over here at the garden. And then one of the guards says, maybe they're not going to be in the garden. Maybe they're waiting right outside the garden. So they go outside, and who's standing there right outside the garden? Of course, the bishop is standing there, waiting to see what would happen. Suddenly, 3 guards run over, they grab the bishop, they pick him up, and the bishop starts to yell, what are you doing to me? And the guards say, we have an order from the king. And he says, what do you mean? No, it's a mistake, it's somebody else. No, the king told us you're going to say it's a mistake. The king told us you're going to... No, I'm the king's bishop, you know who I am? The king told us you would say that. They grab the bishop and they throw him into the furnace. Right? In the meantime, the king was sitting in his palace, and he doesn't know what to do with himself. He feels terrible. He feels guilty about what happened. He knows that at this moment, his doctor, his close friend and advisor, his innocent person is being killed at his order. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's crying. Finally, he gets up and he goes outside, and he feels he can't. He doesn't know what to do. He rushes over to the guards. He said, "Did you do it already?" And the guards said, "Yeah, it's done." And the king's crying, standing there, he's crying and weeping. And the guards tell him, what's wrong? We did what you told us to do. And he says, yeah, it was a mistake. I don't know what I did. I don't know what came over me. And as they're standing there and crying, the Jewish doctor walks into the garden. Right? And the king looks at him and he says, what happened? He turns to the guards and he says, didn't you tell me that you carried out my order? And he said, yeah, of course we did. We threw the bishop into the furnace. And the king says, aha, okay. I see what happened, says the king. The king said, I'm very happy you didn't, that my Jewish doctor is still alive. Right? And of course, the king quickly realized that it was the bishop that was behind all of this, and that he got what he rightfully deserved. So very often, we think that we're endangering, not our own life. Most of us aren't in that situation. This doctor felt that he was endangering his own life to save somebody else's life, but he was really saving his own life. And very often we also feel like we're giving up something that's important to us, right? We should never be in a situation where we have to endanger our life, but we have to give up our own time, our own comfort, our own money, our own convenience, and we think that we're giving something away to help others. But the Torah tells us no. The Torah says, "V'chei achicha imach." Your brother will live with you. When you give life to your brother, It's together with your own life. You're giving life to yourself. And the Torah repeats it twice. The Torah tells us when you think you're giving, 20 zlati to your brother, you're really getting twice as much and maybe even more than that for yourself. And this is what we all need to realize in our lives whenever we face a situation, right, where we see another person who's experiencing difficult times and we feel that they need our help. We have to realize that, yes, we're helping them, but we're really helping ourselves. And to conclude with a final story, in Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, right in the city of Lublin in Poland. So this was there was a the Meir Shapiro yeshiva. So the yeshiva there had a small dormitory where with places for the bachrim to sleep, beds for the bachrim to sleep. However, it was a very small dormitory and there weren't enough beds for all the bachrim. So it was very difficult to get a bed. It was really like the older bachrim, the bachrim who were there for a long time already that got the beds. And there was a waiting list. When you came to the yeshiva, you had to get on a waiting list till you got a bed. So Rabbi Chaim Kreisworth, who was later the 19 after the war, he was the rabbi in Antwerp, Belgium. So at that time, he was a student in the yeshiva. And when he came to the yeshiva, of course, he got on the waiting list for a bed. He had to wait a long time, almost a year. And finally, he was told that there was a bed available. In one of the rooms, there was a bed available. He was very excited. He took all his stuff. He wouldn't have to sleep on the bench anymore. The bachrim had to sleep on a lot of bachrim had to sleep on some of the benches. Maybe even on the floor. Finally, he had a bed. So he went to the room. And as he's unpacking, as he's settling down in his new room, the door opens up, and a person walked in. There are different versions exactly who this person was. The way I heard it, it was an elderly rabbi, a blind rabbi. His name was Rabbi Yeshaya. He was a great grandson of Rabbi Michal of Zlotchev. And he had arrived in Lublin, and he was looking for a place to stay. And he wandered into the yeshiva, and obviously he was blind, he couldn't see, he didn't even know what he was looking for. And Chaim saw him, he asked him, how can I help you? And he said, I need a place to stay. Perhaps there's a bed available in the yeshiva. Chaim doesn't know what to do, right? There are no available beds in the yeshiva, right? But Chaim, he realizes that this elderly rabbi needs a bed a lot more than he does. So he doesn't want to tell him that he's giving up his own bed. So he says, yeah, there's actually a bed available right here. Right? He leads him over to his own bed. Okay. Shai is very happy. Thank you so much for showing me this available bed. Right? And what's Chaim going to do? Chaim himself doesn't have a place to stay. Now, of course, he can go back to sleeping on the benches, but if he goes out of the room to sleep on the benches, Rishai is going to realize that he gave up his own bed. So he decided he has to stay in the room. He has to make believe like he has one of the other beds in the room, right? So he went to the other side of the room, and he slept on the floor under one of the beds on the other side of the room. Now, Rabbi Shai was blind. I guess he couldn't see that he was sleeping under the bed. He thought he was sleeping on one of the beds there. Right? And this went on for a day, 2 days, a month.
On that bed?
What?
Who was on that bed?
One of the other bachrim was sleeping on the bed. He was sleeping on the floor. Right?
The bachrim didn't want to share his bed.
Chaim didn't ask the other bachrim to share his bed. He slept on the floor. This went on for a year, 2 years, almost 5 years. Almost 5 years he slept on the floor. 5 years later, the Germans entered Poland. And they came to Lublin. They came to the yeshiva, and they rounded up many of the bachrim who didn't manage to escape, and most of the bachrim were shot on the spot. And Chaim was in his room. He heard the soldiers wandering through the building, and he knew that, very soon they would arrive in his room. And at that moment, the door to his room opened, and a young German soldier with a big rifle appeared. And Chaim was laying down on the floor where he usually slept. And he turns to Hashem, and he says, I slept on this spot on this spot on the floor for the last 5 years.
Under the bed, right?
Not under the bed, next to one of the beds. I slept on this spot on the floor for the last 5 years so that somebody else could sleep on a bed. Are you going to allow me to be shot and killed on this spot of the floor? The German soldier enters. He takes a look at Chaim and he stops for a minute and he says to Chaim, he says, Jew, you look like my son. My young son, who I had to leave at home when I went to war. I can't do it, right? This was a young, you'd just been drafted. He didn't have what it takes. He didn't have what it takes to be a brutal murderer, especially a young boy. And he says, listen, I like you, he says to Chaim. He says, come with me and I'm going to save you. This is the German soldier. He says to Chaim, come with me and I'll save you. He leads him out of the room. He turns to his fellow soldiers. He says, I don't want to make a mess in here. I'll take him outside. I'll finish him off. Right? They go outside. They go to the woods behind the yeshiva. And the German says, as soon as you hear the first gunshot, I want you to run. Take off and run and don't look back. Right? And he yells out loud. He says, Jew, stand there next to the tree. Right? Chaim stands next to the tree. The German lifts his rifle and he intentionally shoots right over Chaim's head. Chaim runs and he begins running through the trees. And the German continues shooting, of course, intentionally missing him all the time. And Baruch Hashem, he was able to escape from Poland. No, there was the one soldier who had taken him outside. Right? This soldier who had taken him outside. The other soldiers were still in the yeshiva building. Right? And he managed to, with many great miracles, he managed to escape from Poland. He went to Lithuania where he got married, and shortly afterwards he moved to Eretz Yisrael. And eventually, as we said, he became rabbi he built up the Jewish community and became the rabbi in Antwerp, Belgium. And for the rest of his life, he would always say that Hashem saved his life because he was willing to give up his bed for 5 years for this blind rabbi. After the war, I'm sure he slept on a bed. Yes.
Same bed?
No, it was a different place.
Who was on that bed?
So we all need to realize that there are many times in life when we feel that we're giving up our beds. Right? There's somebody else who needs a bed more than us. And we feel like we're giving something away. We're giving up our beds. Right? But we have to realize, when we give life to our friend, we're really giving life to ourselves. And whatever we give away to somebody else, we get back double and more than double what we gave away. L'chaim, l'chaim.